Today on the show, Ellen DeGeneres, Kelly Clarkson, and Dr. Phil. Now Jimmy Fallon, one of the most likable celebrities on the planet, accused of fostering a toxic work environment. Is this a pattern of rare instances, or is this just how Hollywood works?
I'm a nerd, and I'm pretty proud of it.
Nerds today have no idea how good they have it.
Let the nerds take over!
Rise and shine, nerds. Grab your coffee, wipe the sleep from your eyes, and turn up the volume as we help kick off your day with Love Thy Nerd's official morning show here on YouTube and LTN Radio. I'm Radio Matt. I'm the Director of Content and Resources for Love Thy Nerd.
And I'm Daedra. Scandal-free since 93.
Thank you for making us your daily stop for the latest in nerdy news, now Monday through Friday. Let's get to our top story. Jimmy Fallon is the latest television host to face toxic workplace allegations.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
He's my favorite.
I know. Is it possible to run a daily television program without succumbing to workplace toxicity? This comes from avclub.com. In the last few years, we've seen exposés from the sets of The Ellen DeGeneres Show, The Kelly Clarkson Show, and Dr. Phil, featuring accusations of bullying leadership styles and deteriorating mental health among staffers. The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon can now be added to that number, as more than a dozen current and former staff members from the show have spoken to Rolling Stone about a culture of fear and anxiety behind the scenes that largely stems from Jimmy Fallon's own erratic behavior. The employees describe the uncertainty as to whether Fallon would come to work cheerful and friendly or belligerent and mean, which would affect how everyone would behave in the office. Writers revealed degrading feedback from the host on their jokes. Ugh, lame. What is going on with you? You've outdone yourself. And some staffers recalling witnessing him scold or belittle crew members. Tabloid rumors have long alleged, we're not going to get into that, he might have an alcohol problem. That's all that's basically saying. Shows also suffered from high turnover of upper level staff, with 9 different showrunners over the course of 9 years. Employees allege that the showrunners too were often bullies. We're just eating a lot today and not caring about what we look like, huh? One reportedly said to staffers. These whistleblowers say they found no recourse with human resources, and one staffer was even privy to emails between HR and a showrunner where the HR representative denigrated the employee to their boss. One says, they are the worst bosses I've ever had in my life. They use the position of power to bully and treat the staff that way, and the network is aware of how they treat people. They not only continue to enable it, but they reward it, one ex-employee said. Many attested to the mental health deteriorating, with 3 claiming to have experienced suicidal ideation as a result of the job. Mentally, I was in the lowest place of my life. I didn't want to live anymore. I thought about taking my own life all the time, said another ex-employee. I knew deep down that I would never actually do it, but in my head, I'm like, why do I think about this all the time?
Sheesh.
Yeah. So this is not, we're not trying to be a tabloid thing. We're not trying to like do rumors, spread rumors or anything. We're not trying to even bash Jimmy Fallon. We're not trying to pile on him. But this does appear to be a pattern lately. Like, some of the most likable, cheery people on TV in the last couple of years have been exposed as being toxic behind the scenes. And that in itself is worrisome. Mm-hmm. So in another article from AV Club, they followed up, Jimmy Fallon apologized. But not... What makes me believe it a little bit more is this wasn't like one of those big public apologies on social media or whatever. He didn't go into the news. This was in a private Zoom call that someone in the meeting told AV Club about, or whoever, Rolling Stone, I guess. Mm-hmm. Variety, sorry. So it says he had gathered 2 current and 14 former members of the Tonight Show family on a Zoom call and apologized, saying, "It's embarrassing and I feel so bad. Sorry if I embarrassed you and your family and friends. I feel so bad I can't even tell you. I want this show to be fun. It should be inclusive for everybody. It should be funny. It should be the best show, the best people." He also addressed the constant churn of Tonight Show showrunners, many of whom Rolling Stone reported were allegedly abusive, vindictive, or unable to rein Fallon in. Nevertheless, Fallon referred to the current showrunner, Chris Miller, as a great leader, one he expects to be around for some time. Rolling Stone says the publication contacted more than 80 current and former employees of Fallon, and none agreed to go on the record about their experience or had positive words for Fallon. However, one in the apology meeting said Fallon's response felt earnest. So, I mean, that's good. If earnest, that's a big deal. Because like I said, it wasn't a public thing. This wasn't a save face thing. Those things, I feel like, are never sincere.
Right. It's everybody found out about it, so
Right.
required to say sorry.
And even if it is sincere,
Yeah.
it's hard to believe it.
Yeah.
Like Ellen came out and did a whole thing on her show after that came out. And I was like, this just sounds like you're trying to save face. It doesn't sound like a real apology.
Right.
And I'm not sure it could, just because that's the kind of culture that we fostered here. But here, this was a private meeting. It seems the only reason people knew it happened is because people in the meeting made it known. But there's never going to be a group situation, a workplace where conflicts won't happen. It's easy for people in power to let that go to their head. And sometimes something like this takes a wake-up call. But I wonder how different this is anywhere else in Hollywood.
I don't know. Because it's like they have to do it every night, right? Like
It's a big process. Like we put together this little morning show.
Right.
And it took me a solid day
to come up
to do the show prep.
Yeah.
And it's nothing. It
Right.
took me a whole day to come up with content to fill like 5 half-hour shows.
Right.
You're talking massive crews, full bands, live production with an audience, coordinating celebrities and guest artists and comedians and all their schedules and demands and things. You're talking writers for the jokes, the monologues. You're having to set up a lot of these interviews in advance because they're often, playing to an end in an interview. It's rarely just a casual conversation. It's usually like, we got to get to this one point, especially when it's
We're promoting
Yeah.
this.
like there's a lot to be done 5 days a week.
Yeah. It's a lot of pressure.
So much pressure, so much stress all the time.
And it's got to be stressed on the host as well.
Sure.
Because, yes, you have that big team of writers that's in the back making that, but you're the one being graded.
You're the face. Yeah.
You're the face that's delivering it. You get to hear all the bad stuff that everyone says about, if you get a little too close to that, is this appropriate?
An edge, yeah. Which I think for Jimmy Fallon is harder than most, because Jimmy Fallon's show, as opposed to Stephen Colbert or Jimmy Kimmel,
Right.
tries to kind of remain neutral in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
It doesn't try to get overly political one side or the other. It doesn't want to alienate one group that a potential fan base. It wants to be a little bit more, hey, this is kind of for everybody. That's why they focus a lot more on games and stuff in their show. And so that's also why he comes off as kind of the most likable,
Yeah.
because he's not belittling people, which the other two kind of slip into every now and then. Belittle about half the country every now and then. And so it hurts to see this. But you're right. I mean, it's got to be a lot of pressure there too. And if, again, not to be tabloidy about this, but just because we've worked in recovery, if alcohol is how he
Copes.
copes with his stress and worry about the job, no brainer that's going to slip into how he reacts to other people the next day. And so, who knows what needs to be done there? Only him. He's the only one that knows what needs to be done and if he can handle it. Again, I don't know if that's really the issue or not. That's just something that's been in the tabloids apparently for a while. But it's certainly an understandable thing because thousands upon thousands upon thousands of millions of people cope the same way and have the same problems, just in smaller circles. So yeah, Hollywood's always been a tough business. The writer strike kind of makes it clear that low people on the ladder often get stepped on. And so I don't know. I mean, that happens in all businesses though. I worked in a restaurant. The bussers are the lowest of the low. They're below the dishwasher. And then you got servers, and then you got the cooks, and then you got the manager, and then you got the owner. Like there's a hierarchy, and the lower you are on that pole, that totem pole, the kind of worse you're treated. And I don't think it's on purpose. I think it's kind of just a natural thing that happens when there's a hierarchy. Is people don't realize they're doing it. Like, oh, he's just a busser. That kind of thing. That's kind of the thought. And so you have to actively work against fostering that kind of culture in a business.
Yeah.
And I could just see how that would be very difficult in this situation.
Sure.
With all those things involved. Him being the face, I think, is the best point there. Is that his reaction to what's being written is going to be all about how am I going to sound saying this? And so if he's not actively working to be uplifting and, encouraging, I can see him like, oh, this sucks. This is the worst joke I've read all day.
Right.
Like that kind of thing. And not realizing just how detrimental that'll be to somebody's mental health. Like, okay, well, I've worked on this for the last hour and I thought it was the funniest thing I've come up with this week. And you just said it sucks and it's the worst thing and I've outdone myself.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Senecal says public apologies are impossible to believe because we've been trained to believe nothing on TV is real. That's a really good point. And he sounds like he did the right thing by apologizing to the people he hurt instead of his audience. I agree. And I don't think he should address it on the show. Frankly, he doesn't owe us anything. Just because we read a story about something that's happening in a private environment, he doesn't owe us anything. He owes them something. And that should be handled privately, just like it appears to have been. If more needs to be done, I hope he will continue to do it. I hope he is sincere, and it sounds like he at least came across that way. So, big hopes.
Yeah.
But if you're in a situation like that in your work, whether you be on the low rung or the high rung, do your best to foster a better work environment and check yourself and see how you'll be remembered one way or the other when you leave that job. It's necessary. I mean, that's about the bottom line. It's necessary. You gotta do it.
You gotta work with these people.
Speaking of work and working with people,
Okay.
in other news today, workers are resisting calls to return to offices. This comes from MSN. Even with millions of workers across the country being asked to return to their cubicles, office occupancy has been relatively static for the past year. The country's top 10 metropolitan areas averaged 47.2% of pre-pandemic levels last week, according to data from the Castle Systems. This time last year, they averaged around 44%. About 52% of remote capital U.S. workers are operating under hybrid arrangements, according to the data from Gallup, where 29% are exclusively remote. So hybrid would be you come in for 3 days a week, work from home 2 days a week. Exclusively remote is where you're working from home all the time. And though executives like Meta's Mark Zuckerberg have argued that the rise of flexible work has been a deleterious effect on productivity, data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that labor productivity rose 3.7% in the second quarter of 2023 and is up 1.3% compared to this time last year. While employers cite the collaborative benefits of spending time together in person, the majority of hybrid arrangements aren't fostering the connections bosses want to see, according to Rob Cross, associate professor of management at Babson College, who studies collaboration across various companies through surveys, email, and meeting data. He found that mandates for a certain number of days in office are missing the mark because you're not getting the right people who need to collaborate. What we're seeing that's more successful is when companies are using some form of analytics to determine which workers need to come in on the same days. So which workers work best together, and so they need to be in the office at the same time. He estimates that only about 5% of organizations are taking this approach. Leaders are just saying, we need water cooler moments, Cross says. They're not looking and saying, these are the interactions we need to stimulate growth. There's more. We don't need to read all of it, but essentially what it's saying is that we're approaching a point where the company itself won't grow. Labor might be fine, but here's how I see it. LTN is 99% work from home.
Right.
But the one weekend this year that we came together in person to collaborate was incredibly productive. It set the tone for the next year or more. We know where we're going. It had an opportunity to answer a bunch of questions that we didn't even realize we needed to ask. Like it was having your workers together in the room is a big deal, and it is different than a Zoom call. You can have a productive Zoom call, but there's something just different about actually being live with somebody. Collaboration grows, fosters in person. There are pros and cons to both ways, to working from home versus working in the office. But I only think that working from home systems are only beneficial with the way things currently work at your business. Like,
Okay.
this is what I mean. We have a certain system, certain way of doing things, and day in, day out, you have the same jobs and you just know what you're doing, and we go. When the time comes that things need to change or update, systems change, way we're doing things change, which happens in every company, especially as technology grows. If you're not in the office collaborating and learning how to do these new systems the best way, that's where it's going to start to fall apart when everybody's working separately from home.
You think so?
I think so. Because how are you going to learn as a group so that you're all doing it the right way when you're not there learning it at the same time from the same person?
So I work for a big company, right? And we have a home office that was out of St. Louis, and pandemic happened, and everyone, couldn't go into the office, and so everyone went work from home. And in that time, they hired several new people, to replace workers, and they're not bound to you have to be living in St. Louis anymore, because now we could hire anyone from around the country to do this job from home. And so you're able to get more employees that are a better fit for it. You're not just bound to this one area in the country to draw from. And you also don't have to, if you have somebody else from, a couple states over that wants to do it, you don't have to pay to move them. They don't have to move their whole family to have this job. And we've been doing a big change also in the midst of all this, and trying to keep the culture of the firm, is difficult. But I think they do a very good job with, we have a lot of, in our system, you read a lot of, news about us, and they have whole pages of how different people are making a difference in their community and talking about that. And there's I feel like they're keeping the culture while not physically being together.
Okay.
Yeah. But we do 3 times a year, at least everyone in the top half of my state, all the offices come together for a meeting.
Right.
And that's a good time. And that's when we collaborate and when all that stuff happens. Right.
So are you saying that people in the main office, they have people that just work from home? But they don't have a local office to go to?
Right.
With other people and staff? Okay.
Right.
And that seems to be working well.
Because I'll even be talking with somebody and at our home office about a problem we're having, and they're like, let me put you on hold and message my group about it. So they have a group chat where, hey, have you ever seen this problem? does anyone know a workaround? And they talk to each other, but they're not physically together in a room.
Maybe it comes down to the industry itself.
Yeah. What it is.
Whichever specific thing.
Yeah.
I feel like it also might just be person to person, if we're being real. Because thinking about me and how I interact, I'm okay on Zoom calls, Discord calls, but in person, I'm much better. I feel like I can flow better. I can get a feel for what everybody else is saying better. And I have less tendency to
multitask.
Yeah.
Like, I'm on the Zoom, but I'm also sitting here looking at my phone.
You're not really paying 100% attention to Zoom calls.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, it might really just come down to that. But I guess that would make sense, too, with what he's saying here, with what Rob Cross is saying here, is that you need to have the people that collaborate well be the ones to come in on the hybrid days together or something like that. It might just come down to needing to figure that out.
And they do still, we do still have a home office in St. Louis that a lot of people went back to, but not everybody. Yeah. Not everyone. Some stayed from home.
There is also the idea of camaraderie being important to morale. There is the working from home has been touted as like it's more productive because you can wall yourself off in your office and just work, and you don't have to worry about water cooler talk for 30 minutes. You don't have to, hey, did you see the game last night? You don't have to deal with any of that,
right.
Which I get.
You
when
can be more productive.
I really want to be just sealed off whenever I need to work. But that's also draining sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes some people do need
a mental break
to go talk about the game for 5 to 10 minutes in the break room or whatever. Go refresh their cup of coffee and chat, for a second or two. And, that would give you, okay, have my mental break and go on. At home, you are more likely to have your mental break be just watching something on your phone. And it's just looking from one screen to another screen. There's no eye strain break. There's, it's just, all right, I'm going to go sit on the toilet and look at TikTok for 20 minutes and that will be my break. But that again that's a personal thing. And so that's something that you'd be responsible for yourself.
You can go do the dishes or go do some sort of housework.
So I like a little bit of camaraderie in my workplace. That would be fun. I do feel like, especially over the weekend, I get just sucked into a hole of work and my eyes get blurry as the day goes on. Like I have to stop wearing my glasses throughout most of the day because it's too much on my eyes. And so I think when you're home, like on Saturday and Sunday, usually I'm just in my room most of the day in my office working heavily because that's when I can get most of my work done because you're home. You can watch the kids throughout the day and I can focus on work. You went camping a couple weeks ago and that Saturday was so miserable because I realized how important it was for me to take a break about once an hour or 2 hours and just go out and be in the room with my kids and my wife for a little while. Yeah. Even if nothing important was happening, even if I wasn't saying a thing, just having other people present made me relax a little bit to where I'm like, okay, I can go work a couple more hours. Yeah. That kind of thing. And so that, again, might just be a personal thing for however you work. So I'm not for or against either of the three options here, but I knew this was going to be coming to a head as the pandemic was happening.
Right.
We talked about what's going to change and what's not going to change, what's going to be like this forever. This is going to be a hard thing.
From what I understand, many companies gave their employees the choice to come back to the office or stay at home.
So yeah, some of them have, and some of them are like realizing things aren't working as well as they did before the pandemic. And maybe this is the reason why. So
gotcha.
We'll see. Real quick, we got one more. We'll go through it pretty quickly. This is just an interesting story. 2D to 3D AI startup was actually humans doing the work manually. This is from 404media.com. An artificial intelligence company whose founder Forbes included in the 30 under 30 list recently promises to use machine learning to convert clients' 2D illustrations into 3D models. In reality, the company, called Cadim, used human artists for quality control, quote unquote. According to two sources with knowledge of the process interviewed by 404 Media at one point, Cadim often used human artists to make the models entirely. One of the sources said workers at one point produced a 3D design whole cloth themselves without the help of the machine learning at all. The news pulls back the curtain on the hyped startup and is an example of how AI companies can sometimes overstate the capabilities of their technology. Like other AI startups, Caden wants to use AI to do tedious labor that is currently being done by humans, in this case 3D modeling, a time-consuming job that video game companies are already outsourcing to studios in countries like China. Essentially, AI is good. Is still a long way away from being great. We told you, it can't do fingers and teeth. It can't do a lot of things right now. Just don't believe everything you hear when they say, hey, we got this new AI thing. It's going to work perfectly. It's not. It's not going to work perfectly.
Yeah.
You'll still have, it could take a little bit of the work away from you, but you're still going to have to do some work. That wraps up today's news. We're going to take a quick break.
But when we come back, Matt has something to get off his chest.
And we'll share today in nerd history. Stick around.
I'm on a mission, even wanna hit the runway. Running miles, hit the track like I'm Usain. Feeling love, spreading peace like it's ballet. Crossing back door borders, I got leeway.
Look.
Hey man, did that?
Welcome back to Rise and Shine Nerds, LTN's official morning show here on YouTube and LTN Radio.
For this next segment, Matt is taking the reins with something to get off his chest.
So your segment on Tuesday, you had something cool app to share. Guess what? That's what I have too.
What?
Cool app to share. So this
Weird.
We talked about you going away camping with your family a couple weeks ago, and I took that opportunity to go see a movie that I wanted to review for LTN. So I went to see Blue Beetle. And Blue Beetle, first of all, great movie, but that's not what we're here to talk about. Blue Beetle, like most superhero movies, is a good 2 hours plus. And as an adult man who's approaching 40, I usually have to pee at least once through a movie. There is a fantastic app that I don't think a lot of people know about called RunPee.
Okay.
One word, RunPee. What it does is it has every movie currently in theaters. And you can even look up older movies too. And it'll tell you, usually at least 3 options, the best times to go pee and how long you have. How long you have to go pee. And if you want, you can even click a summary of what's going to happen, what happens during that time, so you can catch up really quickly. And so I'm looking at the Blue Beetle one, and I'll just pull that up and look at it. So view pee times is what it has.
Oh my goodness.
And it'll show you at first pee time is 16 minutes in. And I'm like, that's too early. I'm not going to need to pee 16 minutes in. But that you have 4 minutes and 10 seconds. And it's a scene that starts with, it says, run and pee when Jenny says to Jaime, text me. And it says, about this pee time, there's a nice father-son conversation, but otherwise it's a good pee time. And so it gives you a little link, read synopsis, and you can go there and read what's going to happen.
Wow.
Pee time I chose came in at 55 minutes, 50 seconds. It's a 3-minute, 30-second pee time. Jenny says, come on, I think there's some of my dad's clothes upstairs. And about this pee time, we learn some of Jenny's backstory, which is easy to summarize. And then they give you a little summary of it. And then they have another one, and they tell you what they think is the best pee time, and that's the best pee time too. But it gives you the 3 options.
Wow.
And then it gives you a poll of, now that you've seen the movie, what grade would you give it? And so, like, it's a whole movie experience too. But I just think the idea of having an app I don't know how long it's been around, but I've thought about this kind of app 1,000 times
Really?
that it should exist.
Really?
And now that I know one exists and it is so well done,
You're gonna
I'm blown
all
away.
the time.
I'm going to use it every single time we go to the theaters. Like if our kid says, "Hey, I need to pee," I'm going to look and say, "Well, let's see if there's a pee time coming up soon." And if it's 5 minutes away, we'll wait 5 minutes and then we'll go pee.
It's like,
You know what I
we're
mean?
traveling down this road and we got to find the rest stop, okay?
Yes, exactly. So it's a free app. I'm not even sure I've seen an ad on here. But it's a free app called RunPee, one word. Go download it, check it out, bring it to your next movie. It's fantastic.
RunPee.
Now, to wrap up the show, it's time for Today in Nerd History.
Today in Nerd History.
Today's date is September 14th.
On September 14th, 1978, Mork and Mindy premiered. This spin-off from Happy Days is about an alien named Mork, played by the late Robin Williams, who comes to Earth to learn about human culture and falls in love with a woman named Mindy.
On September 14th, 1985, The Golden Girls premiered. This classic sitcom follows the lives and friendships of 4 older women who share a house in Miami, Florida, and the show has seen a renewed cult following in recent years.
On September 14th, 1990, Tiny Toon Adventures premiered. This is a show about a group of young cartoon characters such as Buster and Babs Bunny, Plucky Duck, and Hampton Pig, who learn how to be funny at Acme Looniversity, where they are taught by classic Looney Tunes characters.
On September 14th, 2009, Mario and Luigi, Bowser's Inside Story released. This role-playing game features Mario, Luigi, and Bowser as playable characters who have to work together to stop Fawful from taking over the Mushroom Kingdom and causing a disease called the Blorbs. The game is divided into 2 worlds, the overworld, where Bowser explores and fights enemies, and the inside of Bowser's body, where Mario and Luigi help Bowser from within.
Find out more nerdy facts about today's entries at lovethynerd.com/nerdhistory. We hope you have a fantastic day, and we thank you for making Rise and Shine Nerds part of it. Catch us every weekday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern on YouTube or 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. on LTN Radio.
You can also subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app or through the Love Thy Nerd YouTube channel so you can catch up on any episodes you missed.
And tell us what you think of the show via our socials at Rise and Shine LTN on Facebook and Twitter. Once again, I'm Radio Matt.
I'm Dater.
And as always, a reminder,
Jesus loves you, nerds.